Law firm owners hate these two things that could make you the biggest law firm in your town. Rich, let's set the stage a little bit because I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks, MPS. Listen, law firm owner, we've worked with over 900 firms just like you, and we say the word hate, and that might be a strong emotion, but it really is this idea that law firm owners push back on these two things. And these two things are under one umbrella, right? So the umbrella is proactive communication. And the two areas where they really push back on proactive communication is the client proactive communication as well as the prospect proactive communication. And so, Michael, which one do you want to start with, and we'll break into it?
Well, before they're a client, they're a prospect. So I think we should start with prospect proactive communication. Proactive communication comes in many forms. For instance, the moment we get a new lead, we've got to be proactive about how we handle that new lead. So we've got to have a system in place to be able to either answer that new lead call, text that new lead, email that new lead. Either way, it's got to happen quickly, and we've got to have a system in place. But why don't you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, the new leads that we're going to speak to right then and there are new leads that come in digitally. So we're really talking about how we communicate with them. But let's even go a step further and let's look at what we call out of pipeline or unconverted leads. And so the biggest opportunity for most law firms is that they're not paying attention to their unconverted leads. In the firm that I built in Phoenix, from two guys in a room sharing a desk to $3.5 million in sales a year, the way that we were able to do that was by paying attention to our proactive communication to our unconverted leads. The reason I know that is because over 60% of our gross sales was generated from people who originally said no. No, I don't want to set an appointment. No, I don't want to show up to the appointment. No, I don't want to retain the firm. And so they said no, but eventually they became a client. So, Michael, walk me through how you think about this idea of proactive communication.
First, it starts by tracking it, right? We have to know who's not taking action at certain steps, right? Because if we don't have that information, it's pretty difficult to know who an unconverted lead is. So at a base level, we need to have the data to make sure we know how many people came in as a lead, how many of them didn't set an appointment, how many of them didn't show up, and how many of them didn't retain the firm. Once we know that, we can start to build proactive communication. This usually comes in the form of developing a campaign for each of them, right? So making sure that for every lead that came in that didn't set, we create a no set campaign, right? So now we can encourage a relationship and get that appointment set. That could come in the form of a phone call, a text message, an email. It doesn't matter, but it's creating a purposeful campaign dedicated to each of those converted sectors.
If the lead comes in and they don't set an appointment and they know who it is, anybody in the firm should make that call, send that email, or send that text. Should the attorney themselves do it? How do they decide who gets this done?
That's a great question. We should have specialists in each role, right? So the specialist in that role should be the one doing this communication. If you've got an appointment setter, the appointment setter should be the one handling the no set and the no show leads. That's the person that should be trying to reach back out, respark that communication, respark that engagement, and try to get them back on the books to get them to show up again. And on the flip side of that, whoever's handling the no hire unconverted leads, they should have a campaign to see if we can reconnect again. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Alan Deutschman, when he wrote the book Change or Die, he posed the question, why would somebody not do something even though they knew that it would be good for them? In fact, it would go as far as saving their life. Deutschman's book, he laid out this idea that he looked at a test group of people who had open heart surgery, and people who had open heart surgeries ended up having to happen an open heart surgery again, simply because they kind of went right back to their old lifestyle. Well, they knew what they were supposed to do. Why wouldn't they do it? And that another group that they studied, they found out that only 5% of this particular group actually had open heart surgery again. And the question was, what's the difference? What Deutschman identified was they were working with other people who were in their same situation, actively trying to hold each other accountable. They were following a leader, and they were doing little doses of activity every day. Rather than saying, oh, I got to do all of this, they just broke it into micro little commitments and did a little bit every single day. Just break it down into the micro commitment. What's like the smallest micro commitment you would have them do to start communicating with their unconverted leads right away, Michael?
At the very base level, just get one. Pick up the phone and try to call, text, email one unconverted lead. Start there. And then you start to build a habit out of it. You can go from 1 to 2 to 5 to 10. You start to build it up because now you've got a habit. You get a system in place. You know what you have to say, what mode of communication you're using. You can do that and you can start there. And just that little hit of that micro commitment is enough to keep the habit starting to form.
What's going to happen when you do this? All of a sudden, you're going to start hearing from some of these unconverted leads, and they give your office a call and they retain your firm. But let's broach into the other side of the argument, right? Proactive communication to clients. Why is this so important, Michael?
For two core reasons. One, for the client, and one, for you as a law firm owner. For the client, it demonstrates to them that you care enough to proactively communicate. You're keeping them informed before things happen. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Number one complaint for all law firms across the United States, 2 bar associations, it's the lack of communication, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not busy and you don't have any clients to communicate with, well, that's a problem. And if you get busier and you do a really good job of bringing on clients, you're going to have lots of clients to communicate with. And if you only do it reactively, you're going to cause problems because you didn't get back to them soon enough with the right answers. And so when you add in proactive client communication, all of a sudden you take control over the situation rather than leaving it in the hands of your clients to manage it. So it improves their business because they got a happier client. It improves the overall client satisfaction. And really, this proactive communication, you're going to want them to also use a specialist to do this as well. Is that right?
It's no different. You're going to use a specialist.
And in both of those situations, it comes back to tracking and measurement and paying attention to it. I worked with this immigration firm, had like 5,000 clients that were actively going. And I said, proactive communication is what you need to do. And they're like, I got to make 5,000 phone calls in a month. Like, it just blew their mind, right? So back to the same argument here, we want them to start with a micro commitment. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. You don't have to make 100 phone calls to start. Just start with something easy. So if you just start there, the client feels happier. You've got that satisfaction and knowing they're in a better spot. You're more proactive about it. Now you can start to develop systems. Maybe at some point bring someone in that is dedicated to solely this role.
I think the next question that we wrap this up with, what should we say? What should the message be? I believe that we should keep it casual and we should sound like a caring human being. Ask a question that it inspires a response.
So many people overcomplicate the communication. Just text like you're texting somebody and you'll put yourself in a much better position. But Rich, I think these two things were super helpful. Obviously a barrier for some law firms, but the ones that figure it out, those are the top firms in the town. Why don't you comment down below? Let us know if this was helpful for you. Let us know if you have any questions. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the platform you're watching on. Turn those bell notifications on. And of course, drop a like and share this with a colleague of yours that could hear this same message. We appreciate you guys watching.